Today's episode of the Bleav in Steelers show is brought to you by betonline.ag. Week 2, the NFL season is almost in the books. We've got 2 Monday night games tonight. But if you want to place a bet on any of the NFL action all season long, betonline.ag is the place to do it.
365, 24/7, regardless on what kind of bet you want to make. Just make sure y'all go to betonline.ag.
Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to make your first sports bet. Just use our promo code Bleav50. That's BLEAV50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, cue the music. It's time to start the show. Welcome to the Bleav in Steelers show on the Bleav Network. I'm your host, Mark Bergin, joined as always by my guy, 2-time Super Bowl champion and 12-year veteran of the Pittsburgh Steelers, number 24, Ike Taylor. IT, I'm licking my wounds a little bit this morning because I feel like the Steelers let one get away against the Patriots. They were like 1 or 2 plays away, come up just short, 17-14, home opener. It's Monday morning. How are you doing this morning, my man?
Good, Mark. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I was a little bit, I don't know, like it's kind of a boring game to watch. It was a defensive battle. Points were a premium. And I just feel like the one silver lining is everyone else in the AFC North lost. But I'm sitting here this morning saying the Steelers should be in first place in the division.
Yeah, it's to me, that was a beautiful game. I like them low-scoring games. You know, for the fantasy owners, which is myself, for the new generation, what we like a lot of points. We like the offense, having splash plays. But for me, that game was so beautiful. It was a game of attrition. It was a game of who was going to make a play or the big play. And that's what the New England Patriots wound up doing to get them a W.
Yeah, it really came down to 2 plays for me. It was everyone's going to point to Gunnar Olszewski's dropped punt. Patriots take advantage, go down and score a touchdown with the improved field position. Just 2 plays before that, too. Cam Sutton had what looked like a for sure interception, and he dropped it. And Steelers defense got off the field. They forced the punt, but you got to take advantage of the opportunities, especially in a game where points were a premium. Going into the game, Mike, the over-under was 40.5 points. So you knew scoring was going to be hard to come by, and really – when the Patriots got the ball back off the muffed punt, they took advantage.
Yeah, that's exactly what they did. But you got to give, I'm going to give Nelson Agholor his props, because when you needed a receiver to make a play late in the game, that's exactly what he did over Witherspoon. So that kind of put them over the hump, so say, kind of like lit a flare for the New England Patriots. And on our side, meaning the Pittsburgh Steelers, we didn't have any splash plays. You know what I'm saying? So that's what Coach always talk about. Coach Tomlin always talk about splash plays, but usually when he talks about it, he talks about it on the defensive side. And yes, Cam did drop the interception that would have gave the Cam Sutton, did drop that interception and would have gave the Pittsburgh Steelers another possession, another opportunity. But, New England came in, did what they needed to do. Pittsburgh didn't have enough splash plays, Mark, so say. Najee, we knew what we was going to get from Najee as far as like from the receiving corps from the Pittsburgh Steelers. They just didn't make enough plays for this game to put the Pittsburgh Steelers in a position to win it.
Coach Tomlin said the same thing in his news conference after the game, Mike, in terms of the splash plays. Separate from this show this season, we will have your Taylor Talk segment. One of the splash plays for the Steelers was that interception by Minkah Fitzpatrick. So go on and check that video out. Again, we're doing that separately from the video because we have the rights to use the NFL Plus footage, but just have to make sure that we're abiding by those restrictions. I want to go back to the Agholor play, though, because this is a play I broke down on my YouTube channel, like high pointing the football and the importance of high pointing the football. Catch the ball at its highest point. Witherspoon was actually in terrific position. Agholor just went up and went to go get it. And that was really the key differentiator in that play, and it helped the Patriots get the lead before the end of the first half.
Yeah, we always talk about small receivers. When I mean small, I mean as in height, receivers who play tall. And we usually expect tall receivers to play even taller. And that's exactly what Nelson Agholor did on that play. He played like a tall receiver. He played 6'4". So when you do that, when you're high pointing the ball, you're able to put not only yourself but your team in a good position. You're able to make splash plays. You know, I played against a few receivers where all they did was high point the ball, you know. So Randy Moss really wasn't a jumper. You know, Randy just run past you and have you redlining your hamstrings, and you thought your hamstrings was going to tear off the ball. But other than that, man, you can name guys like Brandon Marshall at one point in time who was in his prime. He used to high point the ball a lot. Wasn't going to run past you, but you knew if any one of his quarterbacks threw the ball in his area code, he was going to catch it because he was just good at high pointing the ball. Even Antonio Brown, Coach T, I remember Coach T challenged AB Antonio Brown on, okay, we know you're probably one of the best route runners, the best toe tappers when it come down to the sideline, but we need you to play big. And at one point in time, that's what AB started doing. AB started to play like a receiver who was 6'4". He started high pointing the ball. So that means a lot. You can look at the game against the Baltimore Ravens. Waddle, the touchdown from Tua to Waddle.
Yep.
You know, what did he do? He went up, he high pointed the ball. So it just gives you a high percentage on coming down and making plays. That's something the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't do as a whole when it came down to that receiving core. That's something Agholor did when it came down to making that play.
Like, you're a poet. You are an absolute poet. Redlining the hamstrings that's going to fall off the bone. You're talking about your hamstring as if it's like a chicken wing.
It is, man. That hamstring, like the belt, like that engine belt. You know, that engine belt get rusted. The engine belt gonna pop off. That's exactly what that hamstring is, man. That hamstring, when you get somebody, a Tyreek Hill who's a Waddle, and you're trying to chase him, you're actually doing something body isn't used to, and that's going faster than what it usually doesn't do. So, yeah, exactly, man. When I say putting that hamstring and running that hamstring off the bone, that's exactly what happens.
When people ask me, this is why this is one of my favorite things to do each week, because you make me think about things a little bit differently. Let me bring this back to the Steelers-Patriots game from Sunday. A few other observations I had. It's clear the offense needs to improve. I thought the defense played well enough to win, because in most games, if you only allow 17 points, you should go on and win the football game. So offense has got to get better. I thought Najee Harris looked healthy. And if you need evidence of that, I know he keeps saying I'm good. He's probably not 100%, but the play where he caught the ball to the backfield, threw a Patriots defender to the ground, a mean stiff arm, and then he leaped over another defender. So it's like, I think Najee's good. I think he's good to go if he's capable of doing that. And then really the last thing that I noticed from this game was the pass rush wasn't quite there. You knew it wasn't going to be quite as strong without TJ Watt, but 0 sacks on Mac Jones. And again, 17 points overall. I think the defense did a nice job, but there were times where it's like, Jones has got too much time to throw. He's got too much time to throw. He's got too much time to throw. Steelers now 0-5 without Watt when Watt is not healthy, but that's what I noticed from Sunday.
Yeah, it's just tough to replace TJ Watt, you know, league's defensive MVP, was on the verge last year of breaking the sack record. It's just hard to replace that. I mean, in one game, he gets a sack, a interception, and a few quarterback hurries when they play and when they beat the Cincinnati Bengals. So it's just tough to replace a guy like that, Mark. So you try to do it as a whole and collectively, and they did. You just said it best. When you hold a team, an NFL team, to 17 points, you're thinking you're walking out that stadium with the win. But Pittsburgh didn't.
All right, this is what everyone's going to be talking about this week in Pittsburgh is how soon should the Steelers start Kenny Pickett? Because I don't know if you heard this during Sunday's broadcast. I could hear in the third quarter at one point the fans at Acrisure Stadium, home opener, chanting Kenny, Kenny. Here's where I'd go to is, would he make a difference? But I want to go back to this, and this is going to be something we'll talk about all season long, is how soon should the Steelers start Kenny Pickett? Because however you want to grade Trubisky, I think through the first 2 games, it just hasn't been enough. I don't know what letter grade I would give him, but it hasn't been good enough. That's not all on him. I think that's on the line. I think that's on the skill position players. I think that's on the offensive coordinator. But how soon should the Steelers start Kenny Pickett, Ike? Because this is something we're going to be talking about here as the offense continues to struggle.
Good question, Mark. But just my personal opinion, and this is coming from me, they just looking at how the division is going to see what they're going to do with the quarterback and Kenny Pickett situation. So everybody lost last week or this week in the AFC North. And as long as they feel like they have an opportunity to win the AFC North or put themselves in position when it comes down to making the playoffs, that's when you'll see the decision being made. Do we keep Mr. Trubisky on the field or do we ride with the young one? And that's Kenny Pickett.
Like I always said, it's that matchup against the Saints following the bye week on November the 13th is where I have it circled on my calendar. Is not to say it's for sure going to happen there, but that's kind of what I'm looking at. And the rest of the division, I look at the first 6 games of the season where the Steelers are underdogs in 5 of their first 6 games of the regular season. We said this from the jump going into this year. If the Steelers go 500 or better in those first 6, because it's a brutal 6-game stretch, the back half of the schedule gets a lot easier. So, yeah, you probably let one get away against the Patriots. At the same time, I don't think many people expected the Steelers to win in week 1 against the Bengals. So that's kind of where I land with this. I'll say this again. I go back to whatever grade you would give Trubisky. It just hasn't been good enough. And I don't think that's all on Trubisky, though, either. It's the offense overall. And it goes back to it's as simple as this. And I feel like I'm a broken record, and I just want to say this one more time. We can move on. If your defense only lost 17 points in a football game in the NFL in 2022, you should win that game. And it's that simple, like.
Yeah, it is. It's simple to say, but it's hard to do, Mark. One thing we talked about with the Pittsburgh Steelers kind of lacked at a area was the offensive line, and that's beginning to become very clear. But we do like Mr. Trubisky and Kenny Pickett because they are mobile enough to help the offensive line and make plays with their legs. So, yeah, we shall see. I just think my personal opinion, how they would look at it if they wanted to play Kenny Pickett was to see what the rest of the division looks like and see where they're at and see where they stand in the division. As far as like, okay, we should pull the trigger and play Kenny Pickett. But this might be the game to come back to haunt them. We'll talk about this in about 10 weeks. It's the AFC divisional game, and you said it best. They first 6 games are a tough sled, but I'm just excited, and I'm looking at just how the AFC North is looking. I still like Pittsburgh in a lot of situations, Yeah. So they always play the Baltimore Ravens good, even though I got Lamar Jackson winning the league's offensive MVP. Pittsburgh always find a way to hold him and keep him in check. Cincinnati last year, they became one of the comeback kids. That was a good story for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think now since Pittsburgh beat them already once, we'll see the second time in Cleveland. Cleveland, we just got to see if Pittsburgh is able to stop the run. That's exactly what the Cleveland Browns are. They like to give it to Nick Chubbs and Kareem Hunt, so we shall see. But as far as liking Pittsburgh over a lot of the AFC North teams, I like Pittsburgh still.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the AFC North teams here in just a second. Even if you're the biggest Pickett fan in the world, though, on the shortened week, because you've got to play Thursday night in Cleveland, divisional game, even if you were Kenny Pickett's biggest fan, to say, oh, let's start him week 3, and this isn't going to happen. But you roll with Mitch for at least another game. And we always say evaluate by quarters, see where you're at after 4 games. But even if you're the biggest fan of Kenny Pickett on a shortened week, it's still going to be Mitch Trubisky, the starter on Thursday night, as it should be. Now, one thing I would like to see the Steelers do offensively, we saw what George Pickens could do in the preseason. Let's get him involved a little bit. He only had 1 catch for 23 yards, 3 targets on Sunday against the Patriots. I'd like to see the Steelers incorporate him into the mix offensively because I think he could be a playmaker, a difference maker on that offensive side of the football.
It will. This week moving forward, I think Coach T and staff, I think they're going to come as a whole and be like, you know what, we got to give 14 the ball. We have to, because he's definitely probably our best athlete on the field when it comes down to the offensive side. So we just got to find ways. You know, I'm sure Coach T going to go to Coach Matt Canada and be like, look, I don't care which way, I don't care how, but let's find some more opportunities. Let's give some more targets to number 14.
All right, Ike, let's go around the NFL, and we're going to keep it in the AFC North to start. Browns blew a 13-point lead in the final 1 minute and 22 seconds, lose to the Jets in the Joe Flacco revenge game. The Jets win 31-30. The NFL teams had won the last 2,229 consecutive games when leading by at least 13 points in the final 2 minutes. I don't know what happened with the Browns game. Easier said than done to say Chubb should have gone down because they were in the red zone. But, man, the Browns should not have lost Sunday to the Jets. The Jets come back and win. And that might have not have been the craziest game on Sunday. It was a weird Sunday in week 2 of the NFL season.
I remember Coach LeBeau used to say, I always find a way. You know, the game doesn't end till it's 4-0 sitting on the clock. You know, as long as the clock is ticking, we all got opportunity. And that's exactly how the New York Jets was thinking. You know, as long as we got some kind of time on the clock, man, we can find a way to win this game. And that's just what it was. You know, the Cleveland Browns found a way to lose it, and the New York Jets found a way to win it. You know, so Joe Flacco, he's just used to the AFC. He's used to the AFC North, so nothing really gets to Flacco, so say, unless you put a lot of pressure on him consistently. So for, you know, the New York Jets to have a hostile environment and Flacco not being as mobile as he once was to come out with the W and put up 31 points is very impressive, because when you just look at on paper who has a good defense and off of names and off of Pro Bowlers and off of first rounders, you'll think for sure the Cleveland Browns defense would have been more stout than what they was.
I'm with you there, Ike. And we're still like 3 weeks away from a full moon. But Correct. This is how rare Sunday was. I'm going to give you a stat here that it blew my mind. The last time the Lions, the Jets, and the Jags won on the same day, December 11th, 2011. Ike, you were still playing in the league.
Well, that was a while ago. You know, tell you what that was for me. That was 11 years ago. Yep. I was way more handsome 11 years ago when it came down to that. So, yeah, time does fly. That was a long time, but yeah, the teams you just named, I'm sure they a lot of people had them in the losing bracket, but they found the way to win. What was interesting to me was seeing the score for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I was like, holy, you know what I'm saying? But you know, they finding a way to win. You know, that's another team that got a lot of first rounders on their roster as well. And that's because of the records they've been having for the past, 9 to 10 years. So we shall see. But it was, for me, it was a weird overtime-ish Sunday. You know, the Kyler Murray situation, him scrambling for 84 yards to run from sideline to sideline to run 10 yards was very impressive to me. Him just sitting back there, reading the whole 350-page book before he wound up. So it was cool, man. Football is back. I was talking to Miss Courtney. Shout out to Miss Courtney, one of the head people from Brinks TV. Me and Miss Courtney was talking before you came on. It was like, America is just different when it's football season. It's very vibrant. So that's what it was. But football, I can sit and watch football all day. But it was something different on Sunday this weekend.
Yeah, that Kyler Murray scramble was how I used to play Madden as a kid.
Correct.
Yeah. We can take this in several different directions here. Ravens end up losing to the Dolphins, and Tua finally went off 6 touchdowns. Didn't play that well in the first half, had 2 picks, but I tell you what, that 1-2 combo of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, don't forget, Waddle and Tua, college teammates at Alabama, so you see that connection. But those 2 guys on the outside for the Dolphins are going to be a problem for the rest of the league, because you can double team and maybe shut down one, but then you got another guy across the field who's equally as effective.
Just get him the ball. and we get them the ball ASAP. That's exactly what the OC is doing for the the Miami Dolphins. You know, when you looked at that first half and the Baltimore Ravens going into the second half, the beginning of the second half, man, I was looking at the score. I said, oh, man, this is about to be a day for the Miami Dolphins. Like, Baltimore defense is balling. And they just started giving Cheetah and Waddle the ball, but they started giving it to him ASAP, start running these slants, start running these wide receiver screens, and just say, man, let that V12 engine do what that V12 engine do, and they wind up coming back. You know, both of them boys had over 150 yards when it came down to receiving. I think Waddle had 2 tutties when it came down to that. So, and Tua threw for 6 touchdowns. You know, he's like one of the 6 people who threw for 6 touchdowns in years, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So it's always, man, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And for them to come back on the defense, because I love the Baltimore Ravens defense, for the Miami Dolphins to come back on a defense like that says a lot. For Tua to erase his first half and to bounce back in the second half says a lot about Tua as well.
I'm not going to buy my Tua stock quite yet. I want to see him do it again, but it's promising if you're a Dolphins fan. And then Waddle, who in my opinion has the best touchdown celebration, because I love to see him do that with his teammates, the Waddle in the end zone. But I love seeing when they cut away to the fans doing the same thing in the stands. It just warms my heart.
Yeah, that penguin Waddle. That's what they got him doing.
Yeah.
So that's real cool. But yeah, man, I mean, if you look at the offseason, they said with the Miami Dolphins, when Tyreek Hill wanted to get traded, head coach is like, let's trade everything. I don't care what we trade. And they understood the weaknesses of Tua. Okay, well, let's just build on his strength. How you build on his strength? We're about to give him 2 Bugattis on the outside, and we're going to get the ball in their hands as many times as possible. And that's exactly what the Miami Dolphins did.
I'm just here for the Ike Taylor car references. Ike, the Bengals losing to the Cowboys. I tell you what, everyone thought that the Bengals weren't going to have that Super Bowl hangover. They have 4 new starting offensive linemen this year. They bring in Lyle Collins from the Cowboys, Alex Kappa. Joe Burrow sacked 13 times for the first 2 weeks of the season, had 7 in week 1 against the Steelers, 6 more against the Cowboys. And I know the Cowboys have a guy by the name of Micah Parsons who's pretty good off the edge, but I'm concerned because it's just like they're going to get Joe Burrow killed when he gets sacked in the regular season, the league high 51 times a season ago, when the year before, his rookie year, he goes out with an ACL injury. And it's just like, I thought this was the problem that the Bengals were going to address this offseason. And I think it shows you one thing, Ike. You can bring in Pro Bowl caliber players, all pro caliber players, but the continuity of learning to play with your teammates, I think that is something that is on display here with this Bengals offensive line. Maybe they'll get better as the weeks go along and they develop that continuity. But through the first 2 weeks of the season, Burrow taking 13 sacks. So the Bengals starting out 0-2, I don't think is anything anyone expected. I still think that they could turn things around given how potent their offense is, but I would be very concerned if I were a Bengals fan.
Yeah, I guess they got the wrong address, because they haven't been addressing nothing. We thought in the offseason they addressed the offensive line, but obviously the offensive line isn't clicking like how it should. Or you can look at it like this, Mark. Mm-hmm. You can look at it like they're a juggernaut offense, meaning they like big plays. And when you like the big splash plays all the time, the quarterback have to either have a 5-step drop or a 7-step drop, and it puts them in harm's way. So either you go big or you go home. That's just their style of offense. What they're going to have to start doing now is just getting the ball in T. Higgins and Boyd and Chase hands, and just kind of taking what Miami is doing with Waddle and Cheetah, getting the ball in our playmakers' hands ASAP. Let's take some of the pressure off the offensive line, and let's not get our quarterback hit 13 times, sacked 13 times in 2 games. So I think they will have to mix a little bit more of that into it instead of always looking for that big play. And that's what I think the problem is for the Cincinnati Bengals, man. They just always looking for the big play. You got to pick and choose when you want to have a big play. It kind of have to be on the rhythm. You know, you got to get a feel for the game. So once the Cincinnati Bengals incorporate that into their system, they'll be fine. But if they don't, hate to say it, but Joe Burrow won't be lasting long if they just always wants that big play.
That comes from 12 years of NFL experience, Ike, and this is where I'm going to flex your credentials because you've seen it all in the league. I could go through in the offseason, we should do this, of all of the receivers you went up against, but that comes from 12 years of experience, Ike, to where you've gone against the best of the best in the league. So this is where I'm going to flex your credentials when you make that statement. It makes heck of a lot of sense to me in terms of let's get the ball out of Burrow's hands and keep our prized possession healthy, because I think we're still all in on Joe Burrow being one of the NFL's best quarterbacks, but you got to keep him healthy and you got to keep him upright. And maybe some of this is on Burrow too, to where if he wants to take all the time in the world to get that big play, to say, hey, sometimes you got to live to see another down. And sometimes, you want the check down to where, you make it a third and a manageable instead of wanting the home run play on every single play. But something's got to get right. And through 2 weeks, like I said, I don't think anyone expected the Bengals to be 0-2 to start this season. Yeah,
especially going into Dallas and you got Cooper Rush, as a quarterback. Nobody probably would have thought that, especially how
with Dak out.
Especially how the Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Cincinnati Bengals. You thought for sure the Cincinnati Bengals would come out with the hell on fire. But you got to give a huge shout out to the Dallas Cowboys as well. The Dallas Cowboys defense, especially that front foe. Michael Parsons, we've been saying he's been special. I've been liking him since the Penn State days, and he has been doing nothing but prove me right. That's all he's doing. When it comes down to that Dallas defense, they did exactly what they needed to do to get to Joe Burrow, to have hurries and to sack him as well. It's just Joe and company now. They have to find a way or simmer down a little bit on the big plays all the time.
All right, Ike, a few more observations to get through and we can wrap. A few more. Okay. Trey Lance likely out for the season. You never like to see the cart come out. And that to me is like, oh, man, this is a serious injury. The 49ers, though, hanging on to Jimmy G. He's been like the NFL's best backup quarterback. And I credit the 49ers to say, we're going to keep him around in case the worst happens. Because if you don't get a fair return for a trade, if they would have gotten rid of Jimmy G. I looked up who the 49ers other quarterbacks are. Brock Purdy, who's in his first season, quarterback out of Iowa State, Nate Sudfeld. You'd much rather have Jimmy G because even despite Jimmy G's limitations, and they go to the NFC Championship game a year ago, he was playing hurt with a shoulder injury all last season. And if not for an overthrow in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, we might think about Jimmy G a whole lot different than we do now. And they hang on to Jimmy G, and look, 49ers are sitting pretty. I want to say one other thing too, Ike, and I want to make sure I bring this up because someone's going to say it today on Monday. Hindsight's 2020 to say, why weren't the 49ers trying to protect Lance? Why are they running the ball? If that's an element of his game in the modern NFL in 2022, if you have a quarterback with wheels, you have to keep defenses honest and force them to play 11 on 11. So I'm not even going to go there and criticize the 49ers to say, oh, well, they shouldn't have been running the football because that's an element of Trey Lance's game. But 49ers are still in decent shape because they've got Jimmy G who can now step in, and we'll see how far he can take this 49ers team.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers, you know what they want to do? They want to play smash mouth football. And Jimmy G, he's just one of the guys. You know, you can tell by the energy. You can tell by the touchdown throws he makes. You can tell by the first downs they pick up, what everybody doing when it comes down to Jimmy G. They high-fiving, they chest bumping, and they smiling. And that's been a good thing. That's been a good trait of Jimmy G, man. Jimmy G has always been one of the boys. You know, it's hard for the quarterback. You know, quarterbacks, they got to walk a little different. They got to talk a little different because they're the CEOs. It's a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks. But when you just one of the guys and you one of the boys, man, you understand the playoffs. You understand of getting to the Super Bowls. You understand of being behind the Tom Brady's. You just take on some of them characteristics. And that's exactly what Jimmy G has done. And you give him a good defense, and you give him Wilson Jr. sitting in the backfield. Kiddos haven't been playing yet, so he's coming back. You got Juszczyk. You just got a variety. You got Deebo Samuels, Ayuk. He's becoming his own when it comes down to the wide receiver position. So, yeah, he has guys. You know, this is a tough team. They're even tougher with Jimmy G. You know, you want to talk about a heck of an insurance policy on keeping Jimmy G and deducting some of his salary, but keeping him because just in case, that was the best move in the offseason a team could have done. I think the San Francisco 49ers was very smart on doing that, but just looking at the sideline and seeing how guys celebrate, they feel like they always have a chance and always have hope with Jimmy G on the field. When it comes down to making business decisions, and we're going to start Trey over Jimmy, as a football player, when you're on the field, you just got to roll with the punches, and you got to do what's best for your team and your teammates. They had to ride with Trey, but Trey wound up breaking his ankle. I think they say he's out for the season. But Jimmy G, man, the best chance the 49ers, I thought, always had was Jimmy G.
Wow. And I would say this, Ike. I would probably not that far, but I would say definitely, in my opinion, the NFL's best backup if, God forbid the worst happens. And that happens Sunday with Trey Lance. And I'm telling you right now, someone's going to say it is, why were the 49ers running him in this way? I'm sorry, go back to the 1990s if that's your notion, because gone are the days of your traditional in the pocket, classic big quarterback. If you have a quarterback that can move a little bit, and I'm not expecting every quarterback to be Lamar Jackson, right, but you keep a defense honest. So I'm not even going to go there. Someone's going to say it today. I'm just telling you this right now. But in my opinion, it's just stupid thinking, because it could happen to any player at any given play. So I'll leave it at that. Final thought I had from Sunday's action. Seen it before. We'll see it again. Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay Packers, just owning my beloved Chicago Bears yet again, Sunday Night Football. And it's just the same narrative. I guess my only request is let's put this at a 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff time. I don't need to see this in prime time for the world to see, but the Bears hung early on. I think the Packers are a heck of a lot more talented than the Bears, but man, it's just rinse and repeat. Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay, just owning Chicago. And we saw that yet again on Sunday night. And I tell you what, too, those two running backs the Packers have, Dillon and Aaron Jones, a scary combination. Good luck tackling those guys, because they were everywhere on Sunday night.
Well, Aaron Jones was in the zone. When you want to talk about a slippery running back, that's Aaron Jones. When you want to talk about making moves in the phone booth, that's Aaron Jones. When you want to talk about running hard despite his size, Aaron Jones run like he's 250, like he's Corey Dillon. Corey Dillon is a pretty big human being when it comes down to the running back, and he does run hard. But if you just watched that game last night, man, I've always been a fan of Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is not that big in stature, but he runs big and he has a big character. So he was the hot hand last night. Now, when it came down to closing down the game, let's put that big baby back there in Corey Dillon. Let's just let him run over people and get them tough yards. And that's exactly what the Green Bay Packers did. But just for me, Mark, the Chicago Bears had the opportunity. They just didn't capitalize on any of their opportunities. The defense played lights out for the most part. When it comes down to Justin Fields, he has to find a way, instead of scrambling and running backwards, he got to start scrambling and running forward. It's a few times where there was in second and threes or second and fives, he wound up scrambling. Now it's 3rd and 13. So you always put your offensive coordinator in a bad position on play calling, because the defense, that's a win. That's a high opportunity for the defense to win. So we shall see. At the same time, they got to wind up finding a big deep play wide receiver as well. When it came down to Tom Montgomery company with that running game, they got a running game going.
Yep.
Let's not discredit that. So they just got to find exactly how they need to use Justin Fields.
I'm with you there, and get him some help with the skill position players, because they got Mooney, but other than that, it's just it's a young team. It's an unproven team, and I think Fields has shown flashes. I'm with you there, but he can't throw the ball to himself is essentially what I'm trying to say. And I do think that they had their chances last night as well. I'm with you. And the running game, the running game looked great, I thought, for the Bears. They got away from that a little bit, but also to have Fields throw the ball only 11 times in that game, we got to take the training wheels off. It's year 2. And we got to see what he can do. I'm not saying that he's going to win a shootout with Aaron Rodgers, but, what's the recipe to actually win a football game? And I just think that they're still a ways away from Green Bay. But Ike, you're the absolute best. I want to thank you. I want to thank the Bleav Network, our video producers over at Brinks TV, led by John Brinkus, Courtney Vargas, Herbert Diaz, producer Yincy, and producer Megan as well. Ike, today's sponsor of the Bleav in Steelers show, betonline.ag. I want to thank the listeners and the viewers for tuning in and watching the Bleav in Steelers show. And make sure you check out our Taylor Talk video that will be separate from today's show. But go on and check that out. We're going to be breaking down Minkah Fitzpatrick's interception of Patriots quarterback Mac Jones.
Yeah, big shout out to betonline.ag for sponsoring our show. Big shout out to Bleav in Podcast. Huge shout out to Brinks TV, Miss Courtney Hustyle. Got to give a big shout out to my dog, Mark Bergin. Make sure y'all give us a 5-star, 5-piece. That's how we like to say it. Keep tuning in. We love the viewers. We love the comments. Make sure you subscribe as well. Keep tuning in to the Ike Taylor and the Mark Bergin show. All we do is be very insightful, entertaining, and having fun.
For Ike Taylor, I'm Mark Bergin. Thanks for watching the Bleav in Steelers show. We'll be back on Wednesday to preview Thursday night's matchup, Steelers and Browns. Until then, take care, and so long, everybody.
Peace.